Okay, hello YouTubers. Today's video is going to be twofold. The one thing I'm trying to accomplish today is putting in the inner fender well on the passenger side, which is on my series of working on that fender. You saw me fix that fender. Now it's been mounted back on the car, and now it's time to go and put the inner fender well in there. I do want to clean it up first. And then the second thing I want to go over is how the front end is coming along. I did a video on the headlight housing. Now I will show you the headlight housings in. I will show you the bumper, put on a new bumper, some of the issues that you can run in while you're doing this, and also a look at some of the hardware that you may want to consider replacing when you're doing one of these projects. So let me go ahead and turn the camera around and show you what I'm seeing. All right, now here's the inner fender well. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, really, it just needs cleaned. It's been sitting in the back of my house for a while, so I need to go ahead and clean it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's what that part looks like. Let's look at the car. Okay, the fender's looking pretty decent now. Let's go ahead and looks like it's fairly dry. Let's go ahead and get it up under the car. Okay, back on the jack stand, so let's go ahead and get going. Let me get some bolts. Okay, so what you're seeing here is me roll in the inner fender, getting it positioned up behind the front headlight housing. Once I get it in position, then I'm going to crawl underneath the car, holding it up in there. As it'll stay in place pretty good, but you'll have to hold it in place and start attaching the bolts that hold the inner fender in. Now we're inside, the bolts have been attached, and I'm going to show you the different locations of where the bolts are attached here. There was one, there's another. You're going to roll down the fender looking at each one of the bolts, and then finally the last bolt down there, which will go through back into the fender, where it uses that dog paw or whatever they call that kind of bolt. There is also 4 bolts at the top. This is behind the front headlight that are attaching it to the front of the car. And there will be 2 more on the very top, which I'll show you here in a second. These are where the top ones come in and attach to the fender. So there is probably a good 10 bolts that are holding this in there. Okay, here we are at the looking at the vehicle. There is the headlight housing that I did for my last video, one of my last videos on the headlight housing. And then I didn't skip and I didn't go over this headlight housing, but it was pretty much the same thing. There were some little changes just because things are always different, and alignment issues and this and that always, you know, has some impacts on what you'll run into. So you may see that too on each side of your car may be a little different, because by now just about all these cars have been probably tapped or even worse in an accident, and by the time that you get them, you don't probably know the full history unless you're the original owner, and you just have to go by what you've been told or what you haven't been told and what you have to figure out yourself. So I can tell you that you're probably going to find alignment issues. You're going to have to straighten some pieces out, make some adjustments, and you know, in proving that, that's what I saw on each side of this car was a different story on how the alignment went. So now I'll go over the bumper. Now this bumper here was a new bumper that I got from not AMD directly, but one of their vendors that sells AMD bumpers. So that's American Metal Direct. I'm pretty happy with it. On this side especially, it lined up really well. But you know, when I put it on, I was a little nervous because me and my son hung this bumper on here, and you have to get it by, well, let me get this bumper bolt over here, by these bumper bolts. And so we were able to get one bumper bolt on each side, and they weren't exactly interested in going in, meaning that the bumper, even though it was shipped well, just, I don't know if when they create the bumper they're really hot and they come out of the press or whatever, and after they cool they twist into an unusual shape, but that's what it felt like. So when you get these bumpers, they don't necessarily look like the finished product on a car. They're warped a little bit differently, and so even though this is a brand new bumper, it was warped to a sort of different shape, and I don't think that that was because of anything that happened in shipping. So we got one bumper bolt in on each side here, and then I was like, whoa boy, this is going to be a lot of fun trying to get the other one in, because you know it was flexed that much. So I had to have somebody, I think it was my son, put his legs, you know, up against these things and just press in, because here's the new bumper bolts that I bought with the bumper, and you can see they're not extremely long. So if the fender's just bent out just a little bit, you're gonna have a hard time pressing those on and getting those nuts on the back. So yeah, so that's what we had to do. We had to muscle that on, and I think I might have used a piece of wood and everything else to press that bumper up against that car. And once I was able to do that and have somebody hold it, then I could put the bolts through, and you know, and then start to tighten them up. So I was able to tighten the 4 bolts here. You'll see 2 of them right here, and then 2 on the other side. So those 4 bolts lined up. Then I was able to come in here and start working on the brackets. You might be able to see these brackets right here that could bolt on, and then get those bolted. That was the next headache, trying to get them arms to line up with what you see there. And then it was on to the side. Now this side looked pretty good, and there's another bumper bolt, you know, right here. So I was able to get that bumper bolt in and then start cranking on it, and I was really happy with how it brought in this bumper, even though it was, you know, out a little bit. But I was able to muscle that one in, and it was looking all right. So now I had all the bolts in except for the one on this side, and the one on this side proved to be a much bigger challenge. let me see if I can try. I will try. It's going to take me a minute to get set up, but I'll try to show you how I had to go about getting that bolt in there. Needless to say, it involved using a like a mini crowbar on the extension on the brace that goes inside there, attaching that brace to that bumper bolt, and then muscling in with a tool called a lady's foot. And I'll show you that to pull that bumper in, because I'm going to say it was hanging out probably 2, maybe even 3 inches away from where it is right now, and I was real skeptical on whether or not I was going to be able to bring it in. Let's say maybe around 2 inches from where it is now. And like I'm saying, I was kind of skeptical. I'll try to get under there and show you, but there's not a lot of room, and you know, but I'll try to give you a feel for, you know, what you're going to run into. And then of course, you know, doing all these parts, you run into, well, on these older cars, you're going to find out, most likely, unless yours lived a pristine life, that it's missing some bolts, because some people have done some work over them over the years. And just because they lost a bolt, or they could make it work without replacing it, or whatever reason, the bolt stripped out, rusted in, they had to break it, you know, no matter what, stripped it, you know, no matter what, there's probably going to be a number of missing bolts. And that's what I've run into. And I'm just getting tired of not having the bolts. And so I went out and bought, and I'm going to show you these now, the different bolts that I needed. And the reason people don't use them is because you just can't find these anywhere. So here's a, I think they call this a dog's foot. I'll have to put the links to all of these different, some of these I got on Amazon, some of these I got on, but this kind of bolt, you know, painted black, you know, with this kind of extension. And the reason for that extension there is so that you can, when you're pushing it through the different parts that it's going through, you can kind of push it into the nut that it's going to receive, and you'll get it started in there without actually having to worry about the threads. And so you can get it partially into wherever the receiver is, whether it's a speed nut or whether it's an actual nut. You'll be able to get it started before you start twisting it, and that's really handy because most bolts aren't made like that. And then you have a variety of Fender bolts in a number of sizes. I got here a pack of 50 for probably, I don't know, $15, somewhere around that price range. Some other specialty bolts, they're all Fender related. Here's another set of bolts that I just got that were for my headlight housings, because my headlight housings are still missing some bolts. This one's an unusual size. It's a smaller bolt, but it has that that pointed end and a 14 pitch, so that's 14 threads per inch pitch on it. Most of them are 20 and 16. So this one's 14. This one is 16. I think this one is 16, and I believe this is a 20 pitch, so 20 threads per inch on those ones. So you can see they're different thicknesses, different lengths, but I'd say about maybe 3 to 4 different nuts will cover just about all the body panels that you're going to see on here. Because normally what you're going to start with is nuts and bolts that, you know, look like this. Somebody didn't have the right nuts and bolts, so they just made different nuts. Some of these are factory that are just, you know, in different states of condition. So, you know, when you're spending a lot of money on parts, the last thing you want to do is stick them together with cruddy bolts. So that is why you're seeing me, after I spend all this time on these fenders and all the other work in here, the last thing I want to do is put nuts and bolts back in that look like this. And sure, I could spend a lot of time, and I have on my bench grinder over there
with the stranded wheel on there. I forget what they call that wheel, but the wheel to clean up these things, it's a lot of time, and they never look like this when they're done. So then you're into painting them and everything else to get them to match all the other hardware that's on here. So not really interested in doing that anymore. You know, like I said, I'll go out and spend, you know, 30, 40, you know, outside $40 for all the bolts and fasteners, and now I don't got to do anything except, you know, use them as needed. So that's what I've decided to do, and not many people are going to go out and you know, purchase new bumpers and then try to reuse the old bumper bolts. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why you see this new hardware. I highly encourage you to do that. These things don't go back together super easily, and the last thing you want to do is fight rusty fasteners. So let me go ahead and turn the camera around and try to show you what's inside underneath that bumper. Okay, so you are looking at the inside of the bumper. I have the camera inside the bumper, and what you're noticing way down at the end of that black bar is the nut end of the bar that you have to attach to the outside of that bumper. So you're looking at a bar that is probably 15 inches long, somewhere around that, and you're trying to work on it inside the bumper there and get it connected, which you're going to need about you'll need 11/16 socket. You're going to need probably a good 2 foot of extension and a ratchet, because you won't be able to get your hands in there, especially if you got the headlight housings in there. And you're going to be trying to grab onto that bolt. Once you finally got that on there, then you're going to come back out, and let me see if I can get the camera out of there. And you're going to be looking at, well, there's one of the brackets right here, and then they're both going to tie in to this nut right here. And you're going to take that lady's foot, which is something like a long steel pencil, and you're going to stick it in the holes, or try to get at it by coming at an angle of going through the first bar and then making it over to the frame here, or the bumper support bar, and sticking the other end of the metal bar inside there, and then just muscling over that bumper to pull it in, and it will creak and it will give you all kinds of bad noises, but it will pull in, and then you'll be able to get this nut in, and it won't be a lot of fun. That's the way mine was, but you know, you will make it with some persistence. So like I said, you'll be coming at an angle. Let me see if I can tell you, show you. So you'll have your pencil coming in through. You won't have this bar necessarily in there. You may want to leave this one out, but this bar here you're going to want to use, and you're going to be coming in with like this pencil type lady's foot, and you'll come in through the eyelet of this bar and then the bumper frame here, and they'll be far away from each other, and you'll stick them through, you know, both pieces, and then you'll just crank on it until you're pulling this bar over. Now mine elongated this hole. There's a large elongated hole here, and mine actually stretched that hole even further than it was. Not maybe an eighth or a two of the steel, but yeah, there is some definitely some strength that you're going to have to apply if you're going to get these, because like I said, maybe your bumper will come different than mine, but mine did not. I mean, once it got pulled in, everything looks great, but to get to this point probably took at least a day or so to force and finagle this bumper into submission. So, you know, that's what you're looking at. You know, I'm trying to show you, you know, how the rest of this looks at, but like to get see if I can get this in the shot. You'll have to come through this hole up here that you're seeing, and that's where you're going to have to run that extension. So you're going to be coming from the center of the car here over to the edge over there with, like I said, at least a 2 foot or so extension with 11/16, and you better have a universal joint on there and on the end of that socket so that you can make a slight bend, and then you'll be able to tighten that up. And yeah, so it wasn't a lot of fun, but I'm glad that it's done now. All right, this project is closing up. So I just wanted to remind you that, you know, I did wash that wheel well. The receivers, the speed nuts, if you will, that those have to go in. You should probably lubricate them before. I forgot to do that, so I had to pull out the WD-40, squirt some WD-40 into the holes and onto the bolts because they were freshly painted. You know, I had painted them at some point. Some of the paint, you know, is going to rub off and need some help to get through there. So anyways, that's done. The wheel is back on. Everything's buttoned back up again. I'm happy with the way that it looks. You probably saw me go through many trials trying to figure out what was the best way to get this in there. I mean, I've taken these out, especially that one, probably, you know, at least twice during the 20 plus years that I've owned this car. And, you know, once you take these out, and they've been out for a while, that's probably been out for maybe a year. You know, you forget. So even though I had put the other one in probably about 2 or 3 months ago, I couldn't remember whether I took the tire off, whether I, you know, put it through the other way. I had to have taken the tire off. So, you know, that's just to let you know that, you know, we're all not perfect here. And, you know, you just got to take your time, think it through, figure it out, try it. Don't give up, keep going, and you'll get it. You know, I've been doing this for, you know, probably 40 years plus, and I do not remember everything that I've done, you know, so it's just, you know, trying to emphasize with you all to go ahead and try these projects. It's okay to make a mistake. You just correct it and you move on. And like I said, you can do this. Like they always say, you know, if I can do this, you can do this. So I believe in that too. So yeah, this is getting us ready for the hood. So the hood is the last thing to do on this car. As you can see, I've got the if you can see right here, I've got the hood hinges back on the car, all painted up. I debated whether or not to go with black or silver, but I ended up going with black only because it matched the rest of the car, and I didn't really feel like putting a lot of contrast into the hood hinges. So I still got to get my battery. My battery's dead. It lasts a long time, probably around 5 years. So you see the battery holder up there on top of the air cleaner. I got to get the battery in here, and I got to start working on that hood. And once that's done, she's ready to roll out. So I'm getting there. It's probably going to take me another month or so to get this done. Yeah, maybe upwards to 2 months. It depends. So, but I hope to have it going soon. So thanks for your support. Remember to like and subscribe if you liked the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.